Yo, what's up, everyone? It's been a while since I've posted. Been a long journey. I've updated most of you along the way through live streams and so on. Basically, we have two fully disabled sons. Two of our five sons have a rare genetic muscle disease, and periodically you lose your nurses and so on. So, yeah, I've adapted to being a nurse for the past several months, and that's happened. That's happened several times over the years, but there's only been like 3 or 4 times in more than a decade where it's been like for months at a time. So yeah, I sleep during the day and I take care of my kids at night. Anyway, it looks like the nursing situation is getting back to normal. Problem is, I spent several months just sort of cleansing my mind of all the negativity over the years. I just avoided all of that for a long time, have not been looking at comments. Even when I would do a live stream and I would have to criticize, some position or something like that, I could tell I was kind of forcing myself because my my heart wasn't in it, right? Like I'm not actually angry. I encourage everyone to take a couple of months off from social media, maybe once a year or something like that. You end up feeling way better. Anyway, but the situation's getting back to normal, and I understand. Hey, I get to get back to doing what I like, making videos and so on. But I did realize, and I think we're alike in two ways. One, we both forget what we've learned if we're not using it. You like that?
100%. Yeah. I do that even with videos. Like I have a video I did like a month ago, and I'll be like, "Whoa, I forgot what I even wrote in there." You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's even I'll read some quotation. I'll say, "Oh, that's awesome," and then it'll turn out it's by me on someone else's page and so on. But yeah, I've always been like that. I took all the way through advanced German in college. I don't know German anymore. I can pick out words and so on. I could get the gist here and there, but I can't understand what people are saying, really. Yeah. I took all the way through advanced classical Greek in graduate school. I can't remember classical Greek. I mean, I can open up a New Testament, which is biblical Greek, which is easier, and I can pick out, okay, that's kai, that's and. Yeah. I can pick out the words that you went over like millions and millions of times. Yeah. But I haven't really studied anything having to do with Islam since last year. And I noticed in conversations when it would come up or when I would go do a live stream, I'm like, I do not feel like back when I was debating Shabir Ali on this topic, right? Yeah. Like I'll remember kind of the gist of something, but it's not where I can be quoting sources and so on. Yeah. So anyway, so that's one way we're kind of parallel. The other is, and you were just saying it, and you were telling me, and I had just said it to the apostate prophet during his live stream, in that I kind of respond to aggression. Yeah. You're like that, right?
Yeah, I'm that way. Yep. If somebody say they make a video that really gets on my nerves or something, or I read a comment where somebody's just like saying something ridiculous, that breathes life into me. That just gives me energy. So when I was debating atheists all the time, and just like how you're saying, I forgot a lot of the stuff with a lot of the arguments and stuff too, because I haven't used it for a while. But when I was debating atheists and stuff a lot of the time, that would give me tons of energy for me to just do a whole bunch of videos going after their videos and all that kind of stuff. So
and that's how I've been for basically since I've been a Christian. Yeah. Is that if you leave me alone and don't bother me, I will sit on my bed and read. Yeah. And that's all. That's what I want to do. Yeah. It's when you start messing with me, or even worse, like messing with someone else, or getting dirty, getting deceptive, and so on. Yeah. I just feel like this energy coming up from inside me. So it's a situation where, man, I have no aggression in me right now. How do I start making videos again?
And I can tell. I can tell too. Yeah, since we've seen each other the last couple of months, you've just been like way more mellow. You know what I mean? Way more mellow.
And now I'm like when we're with the group, I'm normally the biggest jerk, and now I'm like the softest, most mellow guy. Anyway, so we know a bit about ourselves, but I basically understand that I got to kind of jumpstart it. So I'm just going to go start start some discussions with various people. This week, I'm starting a discussion with the apostate prophet. This is a debate on God and morality, but I know I'm going to get some feedback from atheists. We went and talked to Black Hebrew Israelites. They started saying some really, really nasty stuff. And 2 weeks ago, and then today, since there was an open invitation to come have a discussion with Shaykh Uthman here in San Diego, that's where we are right now, I decided to go down there, and it is interesting how I don't recall the references anymore. And it's similar to like a language, and it's like Thai, and if it's something I've used a million times, like Surah 929 or something like that, I remember that. But I remember I used to know the commentaries on all this stuff. Anyway, there is this issue in that if I kind of just jump in there.
And I told you to jump in there too, because I said because he was having a hard
time.
No,
I don't mean jump in there and be aggressive. I mean if I just jump into a discussion. Exactly. That's what I mean. I just jump into a discussion. There's short-term thinking and long-term thinking here. You know what I mean? If I just jump in there, then obviously if I went and studied for 3 months and got back, and then things would go much better. But I'm also thinking, hey, if you're going to be coming out there every week for years, then I have tons of opportunities for discussion. So this is where the disagreement comes in, because 2 weeks ago, I was the nicest I've ever been in my entire life. And everyone, David, why are you so weak? Why are you so weak? Well, I'm thinking hey, I mean, I want to try to get along at the beginning. I understand, guys, I'm not saying always be like this. There are situations where you just want to go in there blasting. My view is if this is a one-time thing, this is the only time you're going to see him, then you need to make sure you are totally prepared, you're ready for it. If you tell me that you're going to be somewhere every week for the foreseeable future, then I can jump in there, and it's kind of fun. But he did everything you said he would do. Because I'd only seen one video of his. I saw his debate challenge to Christian Prince, so I haven't gotten like a read on him. We got to see some of last time 2 weeks ago. Got to see some of his. Where most of the time I was just sitting there listening, but got to see some of the tactics he used. And so the question was, what other tactics would he use this time? And you kind of knew where he was go, because they're pretty common.
No, I saw him even last time how he did when I just watched the discussion even with Anthony, because I recorded some of it and then a lot of it I didn't see, but I knew how he was going to do. And he's good at this too, because he's used to talking to people. He's good at trying to keep people on their back foot, and he's good at trying to control the conversation. He's good at using the sly sneak disses and the rhetoric and all that kind of stuff, act like he's the nice guy and, be like, oh yeah, and then try to throw these little disses out there. I knew he was going to do all this stuff. And so I told David too, I said, if he's going to get you on your back foot, he's going to be nice, and he's going to try to embarrass you. It's just what he's going to do. And David was telling me, he's like, he just wants to have a conversation, he's not trying to go full-fledged into debate mode and stuff. And I said, if you do, he's going to just take that and just try to use it against you, you know what I mean, and try to make you look dumb, and then try to, ask you something about the Arabic or something that you don't know, and then say, you don't know what you're talking about. I knew that's how he was going to do. So I told David not to start off being nice and stuff and trying to do all that. I said, go there.
I can't help it right now, man.
And then David's just
it's like I need a bunch of interactions and then a bunch of mean, nasty comments and so on to get myself kind of go. It's like a fighter, right? If you got a boxer who hasn't boxed in a while, you just kind of you got to jump in there and start and start swinging and taking some hits.
And I disagreed with him, but he decided to take his approach, and so I said, "All right, you want to get,
it's. I mean, no, I agree. I agree with you long term. It's just we were talking to Muslims afterwards. We were talking to Muslims afterwards, having a discussion. There are a lot of cool Muslims there, and so guys, keep in mind, I'm not the. There are Christians who say you shouldn't ever have hostile interactions or be aggressive and so on. I'm not that. It's just, I'm thinking more along the lines of, like Nabil. If I had met Nabil and just come out guns blazing at Nabil, we wouldn't have become friends. We wouldn't have gotten along and so on. And so I'm out there and I've had several Muslim friends over the years. Several of them have left Islam. And so I don't know out there who I could get along with and be friends with. I don't know enough about Shaykh Uthman. I kind of like him. I mean, we're learning his tactics and so on, but I respect people who stand out there and put their views out there and so on, and are willing to accept all challenges and so. But it's this discussion that we had. So the idea was last time we were there, we took some tracks. I took some tracks. And so today I was coming back to ask some questions about the tracks. We only got through one of them, but we knew he was going to try to divert. You said it ahead of time. He's going to try to divert before we ever got to the track. And I don't know how long. We'll have to take a look at the footage, but it was like an hour or something like that on side issues. And what about this? And let me clarify this. And do you condemn Sam Shamoon?
Yeah. And so that's a good rhetorical strategy that he has because he tries to
it's
keep
popular.
Exactly. It's popular. And so he's going to try to take control, try to say, hey, do you condemn Sam? And do you approve of this? Because he's trying to cause the division between everybody. You know?
Yeah, and then the videos will be David Woods slams Sam Shamoon and so on. And so that's why they love to do that. What they don't realize is, I mean, our guys don't seem to care as much.
We all make fun of each
that
other all the time anyway.
What we say behind the scenes is way more brutal. So I mean, I just said, I think Sam is legitimately mentally messed up, like I am. Aha! You admit
He's like, say it for the camera.
Say it for the camera. And I'm saying, Sam will tell you that. We've said that in tons of live streams, that we believe we are misfits. I've actually been in mental hospitals, right? So we understand we've got issues to work through. We understand all of it. We understand all of that.
And we value honesty. Right? We could go out there and just deny it. You know, we don't really care if people use those things against us.
And it's funny because then I saw he was doing that, and I'm like, well, let me just do it in reverse. So I said, it's like Muhammad Hijab. Right. I don't know if they'll post this. But it's like Muhammad Hijab. Muhammad Hijab. He believes that if you criticize his religion, he's justified in going after your wife or any of these other
Muhammad.
things. Yeah. So it's that sort of situation where I didn't want to, because you wanted me to keep going with that, right? You wanted me to just keep blasting all of these guys, and I could have, and in the future I
pressing him on it because he's trying to get you to say you disagree with Sam, and then you can ask him if he disagrees with a job.
And so it's a situation where I kind of just wanted him to know we can do this too. I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to walk in there and go, look what Muhammad Hijab said here. Do you condemn him? I don't like what are you doing there? Right? I find that absolutely ridiculous. So anyway, so that took entirely too long. They get the kind of clips they want. They get the kind of clips that our side doesn't seem to care much about. I don't think Sam will really care. Again, we're way more vocal behind the scenes, but right now Sam probably thinks I'm the biggest sissy in the world, right? And anyway, so that was going on, but eventually we got to the discussion that I wanted to have, which was just. It's funny because I was going to go through all these tracks, and then we spent the entire rest of the time up until he had to go talking about one track. And it was just a couple of passages, and something I thought would take like 10 minutes to go through this one track, and then we go on to the next one, and it took the entire time. And so it's basically, it was actually very interesting. And I started off really nice. I started sort of sparking up by the end. It actually felt good.
Back in your
I started feeling like the Dizzle. And not like super nice reading all
not
day.
Like David.
David. I need to come up with names for the alter egos here. But so it just started. I'm asking some simple questions, and then stuff that I thought should take 1 minute turned out much longer. But it was cool because by the end, this was my impression. I'll have to go back and look at the footage, but we're about to post the footage. By the time you get to the end, I mean, he's throwing his own scholars under the bus. And it's not, I'm saying, hey, here's what the verse says. It really sounds like this. You're saying, no, you have to do all this research to figure out what it means, which doesn't seem like it's all that clear. And then when I quote Ibn Kathir, Qurtubi, and they're quoting other Muslim scholars, he throws them all under the bus and says, no, you have to go to a modern Muslim scholar. And this is really where we got to at the end, that this is really messed up. That if Islam is supposed to be the religion for all people, and you can read the book and you're not going to get it, you're going to be wrong, and you can go to their greatest, most respected commentators of all time, and you're still not going to understand it, and you basically have to go to Shaykh Uthman or some scholar that's approved in some way, and that's where you have to go for information. And so it's like I have to have a lot of confidence in that person, right?
Yeah,
I have to say, wait a minute, I can't learn this for myself. I have to
Yeah.
put all my trust in you
Yeah, yeah.
to tell me the truth about these things. Why should I believe you? Why should I trust you? And because we're not like that, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
want to know what the documents say. I want to know what your sources say.
Yeah.
And then I want to see if you're lining up with your sources,
Yeah.
and if you're not. And that's something interesting that was happening. He was acting like the Quran is so clear that once you know the background, then everything falls into place for the scholars. And so I quoted, but this was towards the end. It took a long time. It basically took a long time of him talking for me to actually get to where I wanted to go, that I thought would take 10 minutes to get there, but it took a lot longer to get there.
Yeah.
We actually got to the point where he's saying, no, all the scholars and so on, they all agree on this stuff. And so I start quoting the sources, and they're talking about scholars, and scholars are giving a bunch of different positions, and none of them agree with his position.
Yeah.
And that's when he had to throw all of them out. And no, you have to go to a living scholar.
yeah.
You can't go to all these classic Muslim scholars.
Yeah.
And notice the reason was that once you go to the classic Muslim scholars agree with me
Yeah.
that these things are hopelessly confusing, and that these things aren't condemning violence in the way they're saying.
Holes in the narrative.
Yeah, and so you can't go to them because they're agreeing with me, and so I have to go to a modern guy who's not going to agree, who's not going to actually correctly represent the sources, and is going to be totally out of line with classic scholars, and I have to listen to a guy and just trust anything he believes.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the problem. Again, it took a while to get there, but again, it's only my first full discussion back. I said a few things 2 weeks ago, but first full discussion back.
You'll be back.
I think next time I'll be a little better off, because I'll have a little bit more aggression.
As long as I toughen you up.
Yeah. Well, you should start jumping in there with some stuff.
Yeah. I wanted to. I just was filming, so I didn't want to take over.
That's
too
how I feel
much.
when I have a camera. I'm like, like when we're with the Hebrew Israelites, I normally keep my mouth shut.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should jump in there, and again, I want to spot the possible Nabils or the possible friends. Now, they don't have to be converts and so on, but it's basically, if I can get along with you, I want to get along with you, and we can still have discussions. We're not gonna avoid issues because we don't want to offend each other.
Yeah.
But I believe that long term, I didn't come out blasting Nabil with, Aisha and stuff like that.
Right.
I got to the point where I was blasting him with Aisha and the sex with captives and so on.
Yeah.
By the time we got to that, we liked each other. We were friends, right? We got along. And so we understood, hey, I've got your best interest in mind. You've got my best interest in mind.
right.
So when I bring this up, it's not because I hate you. It's because I think you need to know this and need to be able to account for this. And so it's, guys, I'm all for being aggressive. I'm all for just crushing your opponents in certain situations. Me, especially at this juncture in my life where I'm not,
He's softening up at his old age.
I think it's just like being totally cleared out of all negativity.
No, that
like
is
there's
true.
no negativity, man. I spend every night with my disabled kids in the room with them. And then, for when I wake up, I go to the gym, and I've been working out.
Yeah.
I'm down about 60 pounds now.
Looking shredded.
Yeah, and I'm going further and so on. So it's just been this total you feel totally different mentally and physically.
Yep.
And so this is like the best I've felt in my life. I've never felt this good right now.
Yeah.
And so I'm walking around all day thinking about how good I feel.
Yeah.
But I understand it's not really me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm an aggressive dude, and so I do like doing that when I'm doing it. It's just when you step away from a while, you get used to doing other things. But so I'm going to jump back into it, and And so all right, we're ready to post footage.
Yeah.
All right, so there's the other introductory stuff. I'll probably only post it if they mess around and misedit it and so on, because you can cut things out and so on. But basically, I don't care what they do with that footage, and as long as they don't misrepresent things. I want to post the discussion about the tract, and if you've got some time, go ahead and watch that till the end, and watch. By the time he has to leave, I think that was where he was kind of in trouble.
yeah, you stop making sense to me, at least my perception. I can only go off my perception, but I even asked him a few questions about what he meant by clarity because it just didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
And David was going down that same path, and then he was just kind of wrapping it up. Not to say that he was trying to run or anything like that. I don't know his intentions there, but he was in trouble, I think, at that point.
Yeah, and so it is interesting because we're pointing out, hey, the Quran claims to be clear. It isn't so clear once you know the background. Well, why do your scholars have these disagreements?
Who aren't clear.
Yeah, don't listen to those scholars. Just listen to a modern scholar.
Yeah.
And come on, we all know that modern scholars are not going to agree on these issues. But anyway, here's that discussion. I do not know how long it is, but we got the footage loading. So talk to y'all soon. Dizzle's back. It's gonna take a few weeks to get some momentum going, but I'm gonna pick some small, calm fights with a bunch of different groups, and I'll be back pretty soon.
In the lion's den.
All right, basically, grew up in a West Virginia trailer park. You know what I'm saying? You recording?
Yep.
You getting this?
Yep.
You see a red dot?
Yep.
So, there's one thing that concerns me in life. Basically, I grew up in a West Virginia trailer park, drugs everywhere, violence everywhere, end up in prison, end up in mental hospitals, become a Christian, get out, move to the Bronx, live all these years in the Bronx, and all kinds of stuff happens, and the result is that it kind of makes you invincible. Like what can anyone do to me, right? But the one thing that concerns me is that all these years, what if in the future, at some point, I get popular, so popular that I start worrying about what happens? You know what I mean? Do you ever get that concern? Like, you've been poor, we've been poor, and, we had no place to go but up. What happens if we're not poor and everything is going well? Do we then get soft? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do we get soft when we have a lot to lose? Yeah. It's easy to be tough when you got nothing to lose, but what happens when you got a ton of stuff to lose? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what concerns me. So anyway, bottom line is, some days you just gotta roll up on the Dawa booths and give everyone an opportunity to saw your head off if they want to. So these guys seem pretty nice. They're not gonna saw anyone's head off, but other people hanging around might want to, no? I mean, we are showing up with two of the main cast members from Islamicize Me, so we're gonna see what happens. Now, let's go find Shaykh Uthman. Hey! How you doing, man?
How you doing, man? Where are your buddies today?
Which one? Oh, there's a bunch of lazy bums. Can't get them out. See, I actually like to travel, so I like jump out. I'll even tell you the situation here. So I took some of your tracks last time.
Nice.
I don't even see them. Except for that. So I took some of your tracks last time.
Nice.
I read 4 or 5 of them.
Nice.
And I was about to make, not quite, but you never know what might happen.
You never know.
But I was about to start making a video,
Right.
a video response, like, hey, I think this is really, really wrong.
Okay.
So I'm gonna start making a video response.
Right.
And I'm like, what the heck? There's a Shaykh on call. I could go run it
Come
by
on
the
down.
Shaykh.
There you go.
If he can get, if he responds to it, then maybe,
why not?
I don't want to make an idiot out of myself.
There you go.
But if you can't respond to it, then, then
Maybe
I know I got
somebody else
something.
can. Yeah.
So anyway, I read these 4.
Oh, good. Allah guide you with them.
The one I wanted to make a video about was in here, and then I thought, well, I'd ask you a bit.
Right.
But I think I had a couple more objections about this one. No, we'll go through them. They shouldn't take
Take it. Go
terribly
for
long.
it. Go for it.
All right, so this is misconceptions about Islam, and so and some of these are just clarification, like what exactly do you mean by this? Because it seems
Hit
like
me,
there's
bro.
a
Go
problem.
ahead, man. Don't be shy.
So,
I got you.
Misconception number 1 is Muslims do not share good and noble values with non-Muslims. And it says, some people allege that Islamic values are somehow incompatible with decent Western values. Such claims cannot be further from the truth.
And then
I'm sorry. So, okay, can I read that? Because that doesn't sound like it.
such claims could not be further from the truth.
Can I take this? Oh, okay. So this is a misconception. This is
Yeah,
not
I
a
said that.
statement. Okay, I'm sorry, because it seems like
Yeah.
saying Muslims do not share good values
Yeah,
is a
this
statement.
is misconception
Okay,
number
so
one.
let me just clarify this for the cameras. Well, we're reading it together, right? So this is a misconception that is not true. That some people, maybe Islamophobes or those that have some kind of hatred, say that Muslims do not share good and noble values with non-Muslims. That is not true, right? Some people allege that Islamic values are somehow incompatible with decent Western values, right?
Yeah.
Such claims could not be further from the truth. Muslims cherish noble and universal values such as being honest and just, such as keeping one's word, allowing freedom of religion, respecting parents, relatives, neighbors, and the elderly, being charitable, generous, and looking after the poor and needy, not lying, cheating, swearing, or backbiting anyone. Muslims are required to contribute positively towards society and to always conduct themselves in the highest moral and best action. All right.
All right, so
Thank you for the
the
dawah.
point of confusion here was Muslims cherish noble and universal values
Sure.
such as, and then it says allowing freedom of religion.
Sure.
So this is any sort of Westerner who reads that would think that Islam has freedom of religion as a universal value. So then, noble and universal values such as
What's your
freedom of
contention?
religion. Well, I'm thinking of things like death penalty for apostasy. So
Sure.
you leave Islam, you convert
Sure.
to something else, and you get put to death. So
Sure.
I'm saying when someone who's walking by here and takes your track, takes a look at that,
Takes my trap.
take
Come
track.
on,
We
Dave.
call these tracks.
Track?
These are called tracks.
What's the track?
TRACT, tracks.
Oh,
That's
tracks,
what they're
okay.
called.
That's-
We normally think of, I mean, as far as Christians handing them out, we normally think of pamphlets as something thicker, and then tracks as like a one folded.
We just
page.
think of sharing values, but okay. So
Yeah.
so guys, so let me explain something to you.
Okay.
When you talk about first thing, the idea of religious freedom,
Okay.
in the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace and blessings be upon him, were there Christians and Jews that lived in Medina, lived under the Khilafah, and were able to pray, have churches and things, or no?
Yeah, they ultimately became dhimmis, but I'm more
Sure,
I'm more
sure.
thinking of we understand the dhimmi status and the jizya and so on. I'm more thinking of
Sure.
polytheists or atheists
so let-
because anyone here who hears universal value,
Sure.
freedom of religion,
Sure.
would think that there is no death penalty for leaving Islam or something like that. So that's what I'm wondering.
Let me clarify for you. I got you, Dave. So, first thing to understand when you talk about universal freedom of religion, we need to understand what that encompasses, right? So, for example, when you had the Spanish Inquisition, right? You know about the Spanish Inquisition?
Yeah.
Okay. So when the Spaniards came, they didn't allow people to stay Muslim, right? It was either you convert or die, right? Come on, David. Don't try to deny it. You're on tape, bro.
Some cases,
Go
no.
ahead.
We
Spanish Inquisition. you do.
we condemn violence, but the point is, it's not part of the religion. That's what people do.
I agree with
Which
you,
is exactly
but
what I'm
I'm
sure you'd
trying-
say about certain people.
I would.
But
I would. But the Spanish Inquisition is an example of not allowing the people to practice their religion.
True, that
Either
happens.
you become Christian or
yeah.
die.
So I wouldn't call that freedom of religion.
Agreed. Right? In Islam, we don't have that. Even if you are a dhimmi or whatever, you have the right to keep to your religion. Nobody's going to force you to become Muslim. Is that right? Yeah, it is. So let's
no,
go
I don't
for
think so.
it. Okay, so why not?
Well, okay, if you're in a Muslim country and you convert,
So hold on. We're first talking about people
are you free to
following-
convert? Are you free to leave Islam?
Sure. Let me get to that. Let me get to that. I
Take
got
that, all of you people who say that you should be killed.
I don't know who those people are, but okay.
I mean, you got
All right, so-
Ali Dawah says that if you
Dawah
leave
says
and you're spreading your unbelief, then you got to be put to death
I
in a
got you,
Muslim
bro.
country.
Let me first explain this to you, okay? So, first thing is, here in America, right? Because you're talking about Islamic values, right? You're not talking about the Khilafah and Bay'ah, because those are things that you're trying to skip out on, which I'm going to make clear, okay? Hold on, I got you.
No, I'm saying I understand it here. I understand it here.
So,
But you
so
said
you're-
universal.
You're talking about Islam, right? So in Islam, if somebody here, as a Muslim, I'm here, somebody comes, takes a book, becomes a Muslim, right? And then he leaves his religion. Am I to kill him?
No,
Why not?
you got freedom of religion.
Right? But as a Muslim, is it an obligation upon me to kill that person? It's not. And no scholar said that you can, right? So this is where you have to be clear, right?
Yeah.
Now, we'll
I'm
give
saying
you...
the tract isn't clear.
Okay, well, I'm making it clear for you. I think it is clear, but if you're not clear, I'll make it
If
clear
you
for
say
you.
universal, that would mean everywhere.
Sure. So, now we believe that people have the right to practice their religion, universally, under Islamic Khilafah, not under Khilafah, everywhere.
Polytheists?
Polytheists, sure. There were polytheists times of the Prophet ﷺ in Mecca. You didn't know that?
Yeah, until
Until what?
didn't they reveal some verses about you got a couple months to get out or
Get out of
else? The opening verses of Surah At-Tawbah?
Tawbah is about a particular battle. You know that, right?
Yeah, but
So
I mean,
Ahzab.
we could read.
You
You're
didn't
saying that's a
know
particular.
that polytheists
You're saying
continued
that's
to
a-
exist in Mecca even in the time of the Khulafa.
I'd be interested in reading your sources. On that.
David, you need to get educated, son.
We can read.
All right.
We can read some of this.
I'll tell you what. I have a series on YouTube about the life of the Prophet, peace be upon him, from authentic sources.
Okay.
Why don't you go home, check the Majid Ribat channel, and watch it? Right? There were polytheists that were there under the Islamic Khilafah all the way through Abbasiyya and Umayyah. This is historic facts. Have you read Tabari and Ibn Kathir, Bidayah wa Nihaya?
On
Apparently not.
On Surah 9, yeah.
Surah Tawbah is about what?
It's about a bunch of things.
Okay, but what's the Asbab al-Nuzul?
I mean, at first you have.
Do you know what Asbab al-Nuzul means? What does Asbab al-Nuzul mean?
That's the situations of Revelations or something
Context,
like that. Yeah, context
right.
of Revelations.
So Surah Tawbah is in the context of the Battle of Ahzab.
Okay.
You know that, right? You didn't know that. It's okay. We're here to learn. So, when you look at an ayah, you have to look at the context of that verse. Okay? Where is it applicable in a time of peace or war? Is it about a particular situation, a particular people, or is it am? You know what am and khas mean?
No.
All right. I'm here to help you, Dave. I got you.
So it kind of seems like you're deflecting.
I'm really not.
Because it's a very simple thing. Are Muslims
Surah Tawbah.
allowed to leave Islam in a Muslim state?
I'll answer that, but first I want you to
Because that's my
understand-
really only objection to that part.
Because your question that came up from you was about Surah Tawbah, so I'm just trying to explain to you so you don't go the rest of your life with this misconception, making videos without being ignorant of what Am and Khas is, right? There are certain verses that are for certain situations. You need to learn that before you make videos, and certain that are general. The particulars called khas. Some are about jihad, about the time of fighting. Some are about the Quraysh who were oppressing Muslims at that time, but they're not generally taken about all non-Muslims in all different areas. So you need to learn that so that you don't misunderstand the Quran. Now, let's get back to your question. Your education will have to wait, all right? So, now, when you talk about the hukm of murtad, the murtad, right? First thing which you're missing is this is not generally for somebody who leaves Islam. This is for somebody who's under the Khilafah, right? Like in Pakistan, for example,
I know
today. Okay, so you know that. So why
Well,
you
not
confused then?
I wouldn't.
Right?
I wouldn't say under the Khilafah, but I see that it wouldn't apply over here. In a way
No. So let's take it at Pakistan, for example, or Malaysia, right? Those are Muslim countries. People that become Christian are not put to death. You know that, right?
Yeah, we're talking about Islam here.
We are talking about Islam. So we're talking about so when you talked about Islam, you said Muslim countries. When I talk about Muslim countries, you're talking about Islam.
It's very
So-
simple. It's very simple. If anyone leaves his religion, kill him.
But that
and
is
I'm saying,
that is
do you
under,
kill someone for?
that is under al-bay'ah when you have pledged, and there is a court system and a khilafah because that comes under treason.
So if you have a caliphate,
Yes.
you have a caliphate,
Yes.
and someone is in the Muslim community,
Who gives allegiance,
okay.
right?
So a Muslim, let's say, so
Well,
you're a Muslim, and
Sure.
then later on,
And then let's
you
say-
change your mind,
Sure.
and you decide to become a pagan.
Sure. So here
Does
you-
it apply there?
Sure, so let me-
death penalty.
Let me clarify for you, bro. So, when you are under a khilafah and you give bay'ah, you have pledged an allegiance to the khilafah, right? At that time, then you become a murtad, meaning you leave Islam, but you don't tell anybody. This is between you. You just sit there and worship your own whatever at home. Nobody's going to kill you. Understand? But if you go out now under an Islamic khilafah, you give the allegiance and you start preaching towards other religions, right? A paganism, whatever. steeped religions who the Khilafah may be at battle with, then this is taken as treason. And you know in America also treason can have the death penalty, right? Here, you will not just be put to death. You will not, this is where your misunderstanding happens, right?
No, I know there are waiting periods and stuff depending on
So
which school.
first,
and
they will
so on.
speak to you, right? They will talk to you like, hey, why are you trying to cause fitna? You know what fitna is?
Yeah.
Tribulations in the land. If you didn't want to be Muslim, that's you, but now you're trying to cause a problem within the Khilafah, right? Just like in America, let's say tomorrow, David Wood gives allegiance to Daesh, ISIS, right? You give, now FBI is going to come talk to you, bro, what are you doing, right? And you start posting about them and you start supporting them. Now you're going against the government. Now you'll be arrested. You could get the death penalty, you could be arrested, you could be sent to Gitmo, whatever else would happen. That is how the irtad laws work under that circumstances. But like I said, if you're a Christian and you're living in the Muslim land, you have the universal right to practice your religion as Islam has protected.
And a polytheist as well.
Sure. And like
Hindu.
I just told you that right now you have so many Hindus living in Pakistan, living in Malaysia, even in Saudi, right? Even in the Middle East, you know that, right? Nobody kills them, nobody's stopping them from in Dubai now they got Hindu temples and stuff. So you know all this. You're just I don't know, maybe you're just trying to play this,
I don't. I distinguish between the religion and what people do.
Okay, so in the religion of Islam,
when a Muslim does something
Sure.
and I can't think of, hey,
in
where
the
is that
religion
coming
of
from?
Islam,
I don't blame Islam. for it.
those people that were Hindu, when the Muslims conquered and ruled India, they did not convert them. The majority of India stayed Hindu. They were not killed, they were not converted, they were given the right to practice their religion. And that is what Islam teaches us. We cannot force anybody to become Muslim, and we don't tell anybody, hey, either if you're Hindu, either become Muslim or you die. No Muslim agrees with that.
Oh, actually, there's a point on that right here that we'll get to. I had a question about that one as well. So, when you say universal freedom of religion, that wouldn't include the right to leave Islam under a caliphate and then to go out preaching your religion, even if your religion calls you to, let's say, share the gospel or something.
That would not be religious freedom. That would be considered causing a fitna, a tribulation within the Khilafah. And that would be tried under treason.
But you could say that of anything. I mean, you could have an American ruler who jumps up and decides, hey, spreading Islam, that's treason.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't call that freedom of religion.
Take it up with that American leader. But let me
there
explain
are some qualifications
something.
here.
So let me explain.
That's all I'm saying.
Sure. What you are confusing in your mind is the difference between freedom of religion and treason, right? So if tomorrow America said that whoever follows Daesh's version of Islam, which I don't agree with, right? I don't agree with what they say. But if a government says that if you follow that, we consider that treason and you will be arrested and put in jail or possibly put to death and so on, that has happened and could happen, and we wouldn't say that you don't have the freedom of religion, right? Even today, if somebody like David Wood stands up in Balboa Park and takes the Daesh flag and says that my religious beliefs are that Daesh is correct, you would be arrested. Would you say we don't have freedom of religion in America?
I would say it's clearly not universal freedom of religion.
Okay, well, I think you need to have a talk with, some kind of lawyers here, because people consider that not to be an impediment of freedom of religion, but rather something against the state.
I would just say that
So,
if you're raised as something and you conclude that it's false and you want to share your new religion, that seems like that would be freedom.
So-
that would be like the bare bones of
So
freedom of religion. So if you
would
don't have that,
it would again depend on the situation, the place, the Islamic judge that would take it to court, that would have that discussion, and if it is seen as irtad, then that hukm is there. This is what we mean, and I hope we're clear with it, inshallah.
we are clear. I
Next.
think this needs to be clarified.
I think it is clear. I think your mind had some misconceptions, but go ahead.
Yeah. Let me put it this way. Every person walking down here who reads that, if they believe it, they would assume that you're free to leave Islam.
I think you're making an
Universally.
assumption.
I don't think I am.
You are. Have you talked to everybody?
We could ask like 50 people who walk by, hey, what do you think this means?
I'll tell you what. Why don't you get to your other
Yeah, we
points first?
just got two more here.
Go ahead.
Okay, so point 3. So this is misconception. Number
Yes.
3. Islam permits terrorism. And the verse that's used, I'll go ahead and read the line before it,
Go ahead.
says the Quran clearly demonstrates the seriousness of killing an innocent person and emphasizes the value of human life.
Good. Yeah.
Surah 5, verse 32. If anyone murders an innocent person, it will be as if he has murdered the whole of humanity. And if anyone saves a person, it will be as if he has saved the whole of humanity.
Excellent.
And there's quotation marks. There's no dots there. Do you believe that is two questions. Do you believe that is an accurate quotation of that verse?
Okay.
And two, do you believe that the meaning is represented correctly here as far as the context of the passage in the Quran? Because you got the story of Cain and Abel right afterwards, and then you got sort of lessons drawn right after
Sure.
that.
So I didn't make this flyer.
Okay.
I just want you to be clear. I don't know which translation or how they're using.
None.
But I'm sorry, what?
This can't possibly be a translation.
It's got to be some translation. I mean, it's not in Arabic, right?
They left so many things out of that verse
but again,
they could call it a paraphrase or something like that.
So,
But that's not what the verse
you
says.
know, and I know there are also paraphrased Bibles. I have one at home that paraphrases meanings and the verses throughout the Bible. You know that, right?
Yeah.
So if they're using something like that, that's up to them. But what about this ayah? What problem do you have? Does the Quran not forbid killing people here?
Not in a way that would condemn terrorism.
So let's look at Arabic. Surah 5, right?
This is thematic translation. What's that mean?
It takes themes by paragraph.
Okay.
So look it up. 532.
Okay.
So read it.
Okay. So Surah 5, verse 32. That is why we ordained for the children of Israel that whoever takes a life.
Sure.
So that's the first part that they cut out, that this was children of Israel.
That's
Second,
not cut out. Again, so some verses are like half a page to quote a part of that verse, as long as it doesn't change away from the meaning. Whatever was ordained. Let me
But it's
explain
actually
it.
a quotation from the Talmud here, not the Torah or anything.
No, you poor guy. You don't understand.
This is a quotation from Mishnah Sanhedrin, chapter 4.
Okay, so let me explain this to you. This is not Mishnah, Sanhedrin, or the Talmud. Okay? This is the Quran.
Yeah, no.
Okay? This is not from the Talmud. This is the words of Allah revealed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
No, your belief.
Oh, you're talking to a Muslim, so yes, my belief, bro. But is this in your hand, the Talmud or the Quran?
Yeah, but it says revealed to the children of Israel.
Sure.
So it's a revelation that the children
Sure.
of Israel have.
So,
and they have that. It's in the Talmud.
I got you, but this is not from the Talmud. This is from the Quran. This is chapter Al-Ma'idah that is in the Quran. Okay? Now, those things that Allah reveals to us about what was revealed to the people of Bin Israel is in the Quran as a benefit for us as well. Those things we take rulings from, depending on whether they were specific for them or not. And this is one of the verses where Allah has revealed a guidance for us in the Quran. Okay?
Yeah.
So now, if I was to use like Ayatul Kursi or one of those very long ayat, and I use a part of the ayat that is relevant to the subject, this is not cutting or leaving out.
You normally indicate when you're cutting into a verse and cutting out. You know what I mean? You
So-
put dot, then part of it.
So this is
then-
again your misconception. Let me just explain this to you now, because see, I have to educate you about so many things so you can understand. When the Quran was revealed, there are ayat that have wukuf. You know what a waqf is? You probably don't. So now you have where a subject matter begins and ends.
Okay.
Sometimes you have multiple of those in one verse. Are you understanding me? Sometimes you have a verse that the next verse completes the meaning. Okay?
Okay.
Wailul lil musallin, the ayah where it says the ones who pray are cursed. You have to look at the next verse. يعني هم عن صلاتهم ساهون. They are upon their prayer, and they're lazy. They're not careful about their salah, right? So now, if you don't understand the second verse, you don't understand the first. But on the other hand, there are verses that are almost half a page that have many different contexts within it. So if you take from the meaning that is complete, nothing wrong with that. Are you educated now on that?
No,
Like
not a bit,
educated.
because
Okay.
they keep taking
ahead.
stuff out of the middle as well.
That's what I just said.
So yeah,
Okay, go ahead. So read,
I mean,
read that.
if you're
So-
going to do that, you can make any verse say anything you want.
No, you can't. Because
Of course
there
you
are
can.
wukuf.
You can. I could take a verse and chop a bunch of parts out of
You
it.
didn't understand what I said. See, this is what a problem. You know what a waqf is? You don't. So that's what I'm trying to explain to you.
Okay.
You cannot just take things out. You have to look at where you can stop
Okay.
and where the subject matter completes. Have you ever get a...
Well, no, this
See,
is
like your ignorance is the problem
this
here.
is
because-
this.
You see what this is? This letter here? Do you know what that is?
No, go ahead.
This is called a jeen.
Okay.
Right? Why is it there? This is so that it's jais to stop there. You know what that means?
So you're saying there's these stops all through
Yes.
the middle of this verse.
Yeah, not just this verse, throughout.
No,
the
but this verse.
Okay, so let's look at...
Because the verse doesn't make any sense without the context. Because it
About
says that
this being
is
Bani
what when it
Israel?
says that is why we are ordained
Okay.
for the children of Israel. So it's talking about what the story
Okay.
about the bird showing Cain how to bury his brother.
Sure,
Right?
but the fact that Allah forbid killing man and put the sin of killing
Yeah,
one
that-
person...
that's fine.
Let
It's
me
the
finish,
exceptions
let me
here.
finish,
Go ahead.
Let me finish. That there is not related just in that context.
Mm-hmm.
That hukam, that if you kill one person, it's like killing all of mankind unjustly,
Mm-hmm.
is going to be applicable till the day of judgment.
By the way, do you know where that came from in the Talmud? I'm not saying
I do
this
not.
came from the Talmud.
Okay. I'm
It's
glad you're
interesting
not.
because it's actually a commentary on the story of Cain and Abel.
Okay.
It wasn't supposed to be revelation.
In
it
the
was
Talmud you're talking about.
in the Talmud. It was a commentary on the story of Cain and Abel.
Okay.
And the reason the rabbi said this was he said that when God says your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground,
Okay.
blood there is plural. So it's your
Okay.
brother's bloods cries out to me from the ground. And so the rabbi who's commenting on it, he says this is how God is telling us that it's not just the person you kill, it's all future generations of that person. It's all of his blood. It's not his blood, it's all of the bloods of his future descendants. So it's actually a commentary from a rabbi in the Talmud that ends up in the Quran. But all of that is not the point here, right? So you're saying...
So again...
No. Let me just read the verse. We'll talk about the parts that are cut out.
Go ahead.
I understand that you don't always need to quote an entire verse. Right?
Okay, good.
But-
At least you're clear there.
Yeah. When it says, so that is why we ordained for the children of Israel. That part gets cut off and starts here, right? But then, notice, whoever takes a life, and then we have, unless as a punishment for murder or mischief in the land, that part gets cut out. It will be as if they killed all of humanity. And whoever saves a life, it will be as if they saved all of humanity.
Okay.
So that's kind of problem one, is this verse is allowing killing people for certain crimes, namely murder, or for spreading mischief in the land. So notice, they cut all
Sure.
of that out.
They didn't. But let me explain it to you, because you apparently don't understand how translations are done. So I will explain it to you. Okay. So what does it say here? من أجل ذلك كتبنا على بني إسرائيل. So we ordained on Bani Israel إنه. Now you see the wow here. So anyway.
Just tell me what the reason is for cutting it out.
Sure, I will explain it to you. من قتل نفسا بغير نفس أو فساد في الأرض. Whoever kills somebody that is not in response to either them having killed somebody or spreading mischief on earth, right?
Okay.
So what does it say here? If anybody murders what?
Innocent person.
An
You're
innocent
saying it's a
person.
paraphrasing.
Yes,
The not
yes,
that.
yes, yes.
Okay.
And innocent here shows that this is not general, that if it's for a crime, then that would not be included here.
Okay.
Now you're clear?
Yeah.
So there is no cutting. It is understanding with the word innocent here representing that meaning. Now, let me finish. So, like I said, there are, when you translate from one, and that's why we always keep the Quran in Arabic, to know the original text, to always look at the original verbiage, right? When you translate, everything has to give the meaning, right? So, whoever translated that saw that the word innocent would then take away those that were guilty of murder or causing terrorism or whatever else, fitna in the land. So they translated it with the word innocent there. Okay? And as I said, I don't know which translation they're using, but they did not cut anything out. That's the way they understood the verse and translated it. Now, if you don't like that translation, that's perfectly fine. You can email them and say, hey, I prefer the translation, not a problem.
Well,
But don't say they cut anything out, because they didn't. That's the way they
So they
translate.
translated with this long exception clause as just innocent.
Yeah,
Okay.
that is an exception.
I would
right?
consider. I would say you need to put something in there to indicate that you're putting it out. Otherwise, people think they're getting a direct quotation.
let me explain this to you.
Well, I haven't even gotten to the point yet.
Hold on, bro. About the innocent part. I thought this was the point, but okay. So when you have translations, we have like Mohsin Khan, who is a very literal, exact translation. For each word, he puts like 3-4 letters in, right? Then you have Sahih International, you have Dr. Mustafa Khattab, you have others who took to be more the meaning of the verse, because we always remember, if you want to get the original as it was revealed, we have it in Arabic. Unlike the Bible, which the earliest manuscripts are in Koine Greek, not in Aramaic, we have the original Arabic. So if you want to go back and research the meaning and the depth and the exact wording, you have it. But if you want to look at it in English, we always say this is the meanings of the translations to give you the gist of the Quran.
Okay.
So if you prefer a different translation, I would, I didn't publish this.
Again,
but
that's-
feel free to message the one who published it and
That
say,
is
hey,
not the point. Is when you take it in these two verses together in context, and how people understood them.
you're
I'm getting a
assuming
very
people
different
understood
message.
it. I know, but because you have a bias in your mind and understanding, unfortunately. Right?
We'll see. We'll see.
Okay, go ahead.
So you have verse 32,
Okay.
and then we have verse 33.
Okay.
Right? And again, this is quoted to show that Islam doesn't allow terrorism.
Sure.
Says, indeed, in the translation you guys are handing out, indeed, the penalty for those who wage war against God and His messenger
Yep.
and spread mischief in the land
Yep.
is death, crucifixion, cutting off their hands and feet on opposite sides, or
Excellent.
exile from the land.
Yes.
This penalty is a disgrace for them in this world, and they will suffer tremendous punishment in the hereafter.
Excellent.
As for those who repent before you seize them, then know that God is all forgiving, most merciful. All right.
Good.
So the very next verse talks about killing people for certain
For
penalties. Certain penalties.
For what?
There is making war. There's the crime of making war against God
Allah and His messenger.
and His messenger, and for the vague crime of spreading mischief
You
in the
said the
land.
vague crime?
I say vague
But
crime.
you just added that into the verse.
No, I said
Does
no.
it say vague?
I'm saying it's a vague crime.
You're looking at the verse and adding your own word
David
into
Wood. David Wood
Okay,
is
there you
saying
go.
it's a vague crime. I say
because-
that because,
because David-
Iran just executed
Thank
a man,
you,
and the
David
crime was
Wood,
this.
for ending your anyway, whatever you want to say. So let me just explain it. You're saying it's vague because you're ignorant, and I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that as a advice, because you don't understand tafsir of what fasad fil ard means. But let me finish.
I know the historical background. If you're going
What
to
is
talk
it?
about
What is it?
Is that the one where the guys came and they converted to Islam? And that isn't. I have read that in the commentary.
Which
And,
commentary did you read?
You're saying that's not the background. The guys who came
Let
from
me- let
Yukul
me
and
ex-
Muhammad told them to
that's-
drink some stuff,
that's-
and then they killed a guy, and then they had to be
that's
slaughtered, and
one
their eyes
hadith.
were burned out with nails.
That's one hadith about
Okay.
a people who tricked the Qurra and took them and massacred them and murdered them. But fasad fil ard has been explained by Ibn Abbas, by the companions, by the Prophet ﷺ. One of the things is banditry and rape. Are you paying attention, or are you
I agree.
doing something? Okay, good. So it's not vague at all, because if you looked at the tafsir of it, the explanation of it, which David Wood didn't take the time to do, that's why he thinks it's vague, then you would have known that there are particular crimes that bring these punishments. And they are not regular crimes. They are when you, for example, rape and pillage and massacre people, then no doubt that you are no longer an innocent person. That's not terrorism. If we say, for example, if you kill somebody in Texas, you'll be put to death for killing somebody, we don't say the state of Texas is a terrorist state. That is a punishment for a crime.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not vague.
I
You
get
just don't
all
know
of
the
that.
context of it.
All right. So this is the commentary of Ibn Kathir here.
Okay, excellent.
So Allah said next, the recompense of those who wage war against Allah and His messenger and do mischief in the land is only that they shall be killed or crucified, or their hands and their feet should be cut off on opposite sides, or be exiled from the land.
Okay.
And then we have the commentary. Wage war mentioned here means oppose and contradict, and it includes disbelief, blocking roads, spreading fear in the fairways, and so on. So you have Ibn Kathir.
So you paused there, right?
Well,
Keep
he's
going.
listing the
Right,
things.
right,
You're
right.
opposing and contradicting Islam.
But that's not all, right? Keep going.
Right. It's not. You have. If I say that here are 10 crimes and you can be sentenced to death for them, you don't have to commit all 10.
This is again your misunderstanding here because you don't understand how tafsir is done, right? When you do tafsir, you explain the crime and then you give other aspects that are related to it, right? In Arabic, that's why if you get the Arabic, there'll be a wow. You know what a wow is?
And
Yeah. So there is wow al-atf, right? So regularly, for example, if somebody disbelieves, are they to be killed? No. So that is not the ayah. This is not even about murtad. This is not even the hukm for murtad. This is not apostate ayah. You know that, right?
Yeah, you got. I'm saying you
Yeah,
got some.
yeah.
You're correcting some people because Ali
Okay.
Dawah, when he was threatening the apostate prophet,
Okay. He used this ayah?
he used spreading corruption in the land.
He used this ayah? He did not.
he used
You're-
spreading
You're
corruption
putting
in the
words
land.
in Ali Dawah's mouth.
Ali
right?
Dawah said,
Okay, look.
said people.
Ali-
No. Let me clarify what I'm saying. He said, I don't know where he's getting it if he's not getting
Is
it
he
from
your
here.
sheikh?
No, I'm pointing out. I'm pointing out that there are people calling for people's
Okay,
deaths.
okay,
So if
okay,
they're
look.
misinterpreting something, they're misinterpreting it in the same way I'm misinterpreting it, and they would
Excellent.
need to be corrected much
Excellent.
more than you would need to correct me.
Excellent.
So the idea here is Ali Dawah says that people like you who leave your religion and then spread it, causing corruption in the land, the Islamic death penalty would be applied to you. So he says that. So he's including that in
But
there.
he didn't use this ayah.
He said corruption in the land.
Yeah,
Whatever you want to say.
let me-
What verse
let
is
me-
he getting
let
it
me-
from?
Let me clarify this
Okay.
to you, okay? Because see, I don't know what Ali Dawah said. You're bringing this here. I'd have to watch his video and speak to him, right? But this ayah was, I guarantee you, was not the ayah he referenced. Spreading corruption, fasad fil ard has many forms, many ayat, many ahadith. Which one did he use in the context? We can't discuss because I haven't heard it. But you, David Wood, are misunderstanding the ayah because this punishment is not for the murtad only. This has to do with banditry, as you were reading and then you stopped, right? And this is why this particular punishment of being crucified and so on is not the one for murtad. You know that, right?
I'm saying you got
Apparently
some.
not.
No, because
Okay. So-
I believe that corruption in the land.
Has many
You
different forms.
spread corruption in the land because notice it gives a bunch of different penalties as well.
Right.
So I'm interpreting that as there are all sorts of different crimes you can commit, and there are going to be different penalties.
And how would you know
They
for what
all they
crime
they
is
would
what-
all.
Sure.
I think anything.
And how would you know for which crime would you give what punishment?
You go to the sources.
Excellent. What sources would you go to?
You go to the Quran, Hadith, and so on.
Excellent. What hadith did you read about this ayah? None.
I'm reading the commentaries.
This is Ibn Kathir. It's not a hadith, right? It's a tafsir.
What
What hadith? Like read from your English summarized translation here.
the only one
What hadith
I've
does he
read was
give?
the people who come from
Okay.
Yukul or some I think some said Urania.
when
and so
they
on.
came, what did they do?
No, this is where the disagreement is arising. It
Alright.
seems you're interpreting it as if a verse is revealed in the context of there.
Yes.
That's the only situation it could apply in.
No, I did not.
Whereas I'm reading it as corruption in the land. You can pack all kinds of stuff in there. Again, Iran just executed
Again.
a journalist, and the penalty, the crime was mischief in the land. I believe it's on the books in Pakistan. As far as I think mischief in the land is in Pakistan, definitely in Iran.
Okay,
as far as crimes.
So the problem you're having is you're packing a lot of things into a word you don't understand, right? So when you're talking about Iran, Iran does many things that are not Islamic. That's not an example for us, and you continue to
Okay,
say that
if you're
earlier.
saying they're wrong, that's fine.
Yeah, they're wrong.
Okay.
That's easy.
I'm not convinced
Yeah.
they're wrong. That's why I'm bringing it
So
up.
you think mut'a is okay, like temporary marriages and all that stuff they do?
No, I don't think it's okay.
Okay,
I'm
so
saying
they're wrong.
I'm saying I don't disagree. I don't disagree with their interpretation.
Did they
of
use this verse particularly? Or
People
are you putting
people are
that in
saying
there?
we're sentencing you to death for corruption in the land. This is the
But-
only verse
but
I'm
again-
aware of. Where
Oh,
that would
but
justify
then
it.
you're ignorant. Because there are many other ayat about fasad fil ard, and there are many ahadith about it, and there are many different forms of it, each one having different penalties. And when you wanted to understand that, get the tafsir called Tabari, for example. Tabari actually lists out the ahadith on this issue. When I tell you that you do need to look at the context of the ayah, this should be very easy for you to understand that when a certain verse is revealed, to look at the context is important. But also the ahadith that explain what type of fasad will have what punishment. That's why we have books on hudud that explain that if, for example, you're causing corruption by playing music in the street, nobody's saying that you should be killed and crucified and cut. Even though that can be technically considered fasad, you're throwing rave parties or whatever, right? But if you take your not going to say ignorant. What's a polite word? I don't want to be rude to you. Uninformed way of
Get it from Ibn
understanding.
Kathir and so on.
Well, but you don't understand it.
He says wage war means
Right.
oppose and contradict.
Right.
And in other words, it can be all kinds of things.
Right, but what are those things?
Opposing
So,
and contradicting.
read the rest of Ibn Kathir. Why'd you stop?
He gives a long
Read
list
it.
of these
Read
things.
it. Read it.
He says
You
it
brought it up,
he
read
says
it.
waging war means opposing and contradicting.
But what does that mean, opposing?
If
and
I'm
contradicting?
opposing and
Let's say
contradicting,
you don't agree.
if I'm opposing and contradicting Allah in a Muslim land with a caliph,
So
that wouldn't
if
fall
you-
into that?
Not necessarily, right? So it depends on what you're doing and how you're carrying it out. For example, when certain caliphs made certain rulings and people disagreed, even amongst the Sahaba, right? There were companions. I'll give you an example. Uthman ibn Affan, are you paying attention or you're zoomed
I am.
out? Okay, good. Uthman ibn Affan was a Khalifa, right?
Yep.
He was in Mina and he made 4 units of the prayer instead of 2 as a traveler. Okay?
Okay.
Ibn Mas'ud, he told him, Amir al-Mu'mineen, you should make 2 because you're a traveler. Uthman, he's opposing what the Caliph did. Uthman had his own deduction. He felt he was a resident, so he did. Now here, does that mean, because he's opposed the Caliph, does that mean that people are going to say you should cut him up and kill him? No. This is where you don't understand what fasad fil ard means, right? Fasad has many different forms. Some of them, you can have a disagreement with the Khalifa, not a problem. As long as you keep it respectful, you're not calling for killings and revolutions and things like that, no problem with that. And you see some of the companions, when Marwan was the Khalifa, I'm trying to help you so you understand the difference between different types of fasad. When Marwan was the Khalifa, some companion, when he gave khutbah, they got up in the khutbah while he's giving the sermon. And when he raised his hand, they said, may Allah destroy your 2 hands. Right? Why did you do this? It's a bid'ah, right? Another companion, he held him when he wanted to give the sermons before the prayer in Eid. But that doesn't mean that they're killed. Okay? But if you're calling for revolutions, you're calling for killing, you're calling for assassinations, this is the kind of fasad you're taking people, as a hadith that you quoted and apparently don't understand, that you come, you're not Muslim, it's not about Islam and you're murtad. You take a people and say they're going to come teach Quran, and then you massacre a people for no reason, you murder and massacre people, then this fasad will bring this kind of punishment. Not all fasad. Are we clear?
Yeah, but we haven't. That's
good.
not the disagreement.
Okay, well I'm glad at least that cleared up.
Yeah. So I think. Let me try and clarify the issue here.
This is Dave schooling 101 today.
Let me try to clarify the issue here.
All right.
When you're going to call for the death of people, seems like you should be pretty precise.
We are.
in what's
Very.
going on, right? Yeah, but then in the Quran, Allah's eternal speech, and he brags throughout the Quran about how clear his speech is.
It is.
Speech is very clear. And the speech is that you can kill, crucify, chop body parts off of, or exile people for the crime of corruption in the land. And then there's opposing and contradicting, which is how you would declare war on Allah. You're not. I mean, it's not like you're going up and fighting Allah, right?
They're not opposing or contradicting. Let me explain it to you. Go ahead. I'll let you finish.
So, if that's what you're saying, right, and you lay this, and this is Allah's eternal clear speech, and I say, look, it says you can, in the very next verse, after the verse you quote to show that Islam doesn't allow terrorism,
Which is true.
it says there's all these people that you can kill for spreading corruption in the earth,
Yes.
then what does that entail?
Excellent.
And your response is, well, you have to go to this, you have to go to that, you have to
Yes.
look into this.
Yes.
And just imagine a parallel situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that Joe Biden comes out tomorrow, and he says, we have to,
Stop terrorism.
we have to.
What does terrorism mean? Who's a terrorist?
Let's say he says something
anybody
like.
who you think the terrorist can be killed. You know what you're saying.
No,
is wrong,
I mean,
bro. Come
notice.
Go ahead.
We have an idea of what terrorism is.
What's the idea?
If he says,
Who's a
if
terrorist?
he says
No,
we're going.
Wait. You have an idea with a terrorist. Is tomorrow a right-wing extremist who calls for killing Muslims a terrorist?
Yeah.
You think they should be all arrested if they call for killing Muslims?
Yes.
Put in jail?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Be careful, you might get yourself arrested, bro. Take it easy.
never called
All
for
right.
killing
I know.
anyone.
I'm
Yeah.
just saying. Okay. So now, are there people that would disagree with you that that's terrorism?
Yeah, I mean, terrorism usually has a
Are
definition.
there
It's
people-
either committing violence
are there
or
people-
threatening violence
Okay.
for the purpose of spreading or enforcing an ideology on
Excellent.
others.
So, if somebody says that Black Lives Matters is a terrorist organization, like some of your counterparts on, I don't know which side of the aisle you're on, and the Republicans have said, right? So would you consider that terrorism? See, you're not clear.
No, I'm saying I wouldn't say the organization. I would say if an individual goes and kills someone or something like that,
Or
or his
threatens
ideology,
it.
that's a terrorist.
Or threatens it.
That's true of Republicans. That's true of Democrats.
So,
Yeah, if
so
you
if the
say I'm going to go
Proud
murder you,
Boys call for killing of, let's say, Hillary Clinton. That's a terrorist that can be arrested for lock her up or something like that, right?
if you say lock her up or something like that, if you say
That's
in
terrorism.
defense, if you say she's committed a crime and she
Okay,
should be locked up,
so-
if you say we need to kill her
Okay.
because we disagree with her political views or something like
Okay.
that, I would consider that terrorism.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, are there people that would disagree with you?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. So then it's not explicitly clear. Then there have to be laws explaining what is meant by terrorism. Because your David Wood's interpretation may not be David Duke's. That may not be, what's that, Farrakhan, and what's the other guy, Jackson? What's the dude, man? Jackson, the guy who...
Farrakhan.
Al Sharpton, what's
Okay.
the other guy? Jesse Jackson, right?
Okay.
Their interpretation of terrorism and David Duke's and yours are going to
Yeah.
be different.
Okay.
So when we as a country say, hey, we need to condemn terrorism and terrorists need to be arrested, who is and who isn't a terrorist is not going to be clear from that.
Okay.
So when Allah says that fasad fil ard, then this is explicit, it's clear. But when you want
Not clear enough,
let me
because there are people who are-
let me explain it to you. Where you're speaking just like those so-called Quraniyun, just because they're ignorant doesn't mean that the ayah is not clear. Okay. So when Allah says "Aqimus salah," establish the prayer, that's an explicit verse, no doubt to its clarity. But how will you implement that? Will you pray 4 ayat, 4 rak'at, 2 rak'at, Fatiha, no Fatiha? This will all come in the hadith. That's why Allah says "Atiullah wa rasulahu." Do you understand or no? When Allah is explicit in the Quran, it's clear. It doesn't mean that every single thing that has to do with science or rulings or prayer or what invalidates wudu is all going to be an explicit ayah. When Allah says "Atiullah wa rasuluhu," right? Obey Allah and His Messenger. So that ayah then makes explicit that to implement this verse, you're going to look at the Sunnah. Okay? Just because you are ignorant of what the hadith are on this issue and how to implement it doesn't mean the verse is unclear. But the Quran should be studied. So if you, David Wood, want to understand the Quran, I'm offering you, sit down with me. I will bring you the original books of tafsir, not just what you Google online, which is a summarized English translation. Actually, Ibn Kathir, Tabari, Qurtubi, and we'll look at what actual evidences from hadith are about this particular verse, in which situation is it applicable, and then you will be clear, your mind will be set free with knowledge instead of ignorance.
I'm not sure because
Come on, man. You know in your heart, you're like, I should study this before I talk about it. I should look into this before
I literally came here because I looked at the verse. The verse didn't line up. The verse didn't line up with what it said.
Because
I
you
look at the
don't
commentary
know-
of
you
Ibn
don't
Kathir.
know.
It says oppose and contradict and so on.
First thing, you didn't read the whole commentary. Secondly, when I'm saying the hadith, the actual narrations about this verse, if you look at those, then you will know when it's applicable and when it's not. What is meant by fasad fil ard, just like when we say terrorism, what is meant by terrorism, then there are laws and there are clarifications, Patriot Acts and all this stuff that's then said, yes, the President Bush said, we're going to have a war on terrorism. Well, what's terrorism? Is the Israeli government a terrorist organization? If the definition you gave earlier, that you use violence for a political goal, then David Wood is saying the Israeli government is a terrorist organization because they use violence for a political goal. Everybody, David Wood is saying, from his definition, the Israeli government is a terrorist organization. Now, you're going to try to backtrack from that because you don't want those dollars that are coming in from the Zionists, right?
I'm not aware of any Zionist dollars.
Oh, come on.
No.
You may not be aware of it.
Christians love me.
Christians love you?
Just to be clear, the normal definition of terrorism is not government.
So government-sponsored terrorism is not considered
I
terrorism?
believe I would have to consider the no.
Look at the explicit clearness of terrorism now. So Hamas is a government, they're not terrorists? What about the Saudi government? When they do stuff, people call them terrorists.
Keep in mind, I'm saying you have to judge it act by act.
But you see exactly.
Yes.
Earlier you said
you're
the ayah is
still
not
missing- you're
explicit
missing
because
the
when
point.
I said no. When I
You're
said you
totally
have to
missing the
judge
point.
it act by act, you were like, well, that's not clear. But now when you are getting in the same situation, you're telling me you have to judge it act by act. then that speech from
No.
Biden that you gave the
All of
example
this is wrong.
not clear.
Oh, not what I'm saying. None of that is what I'm saying, right? Yes, if you're looking at a particular act, you say, okay, we have to classify act by act by act and so on. When I'm saying that when you give a blanket statement,
Yes,
right?
like terrorism.
When you give a blanket statement, right? Like if Joe Biden were to come out tomorrow and say we
Yes.
must
Condemn terrorism.
let's suppose there's a terrorist attack tomorrow, right?
Yes.
And he says we must kill those who believe in Allah. And let's suppose someone comes, everyone would go nuts and say, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? And suppose he says, well, it's clear from other things I've said in the past and other situations that I'm talking about those who commit terrorism. I think the response would rightly be, hey, if you say we're going to kill people, do horrible things to them, exile them, whatever,
Ban them from the country.
we need you need to be clear about that and not give this sort of general thing. Right?
So-
terrorism is already pretty clear
It's not.
compared to corruption
Because
in the
you
land.
just said we have to go act by act. So it's not clear.
You're talking about the acts, I'm
But-
talking about the command,
So
the
when
ruling.
President Trump said we want to put a Muslim ban, was that terrorism?
Is it violence?
I mean, it's banning exile. You just said exile, right? So if you ban a people from a country, you
No, I didn't
exile
call
them,
that
right?
terrorism. I said
You said
if
Okay.
if you're giving a rule,
So
and
when-
it's a blanket statement,
when
you need
Donald
to be clear.
Trump
If he had said we're going to ban Muslims from the country, if he means something more specific, then he needs to be more clear.
Thank
if he
you.
means I'm going to
Thank you.
I'm going to ban
That's it.
terrorists, then
So
he needs
when
to be more
he
clear.
said-
the command should be made clear.
So when
he should
he-
not say the blanket
Excellent.
statement. He
So-
should say we're going to ban those who do this and this and this,
Excellent.
and here's how these
So when
things are
Donald
defined.
Trump said we want a Muslim ban,
I,
Did he-
for the record, I opposed that.
you opposed that?
I opposed that.
I appreciate
I got in trouble for that.
You got in trouble?
I got in trouble with some of my fans for that.
Really?
Yeah.
So,
Listen, I mean,
but-
think about it. Some of my best friends over the years have been Muslims. So,
really?
Yeah.
Some of your best friends?
Some of my best friends. Yeah.
Am I in that group?
Not
yet, not yet.
Not
All
yet.
right.
Not yet.
I'll tell you. Okay. So, when Donald Trump said we need to ban Muslims, would that include every Muslim? Did he mean particular countries? Did he mean particular types of Muslims? Right? It wasn't explicit, right?
If he says we're going to ban, I would say
He
you need to be
did.
very, very clear.
Thank you.
Yes.
So when he was asked, then he came forward and said, well, there are particular countries that have terrorism and so on and so on and so on, right? But that was taken explicit. When President Bush said, we're declaring war on terrorism, at that time, we invaded Iraq. Well, Iraq at that time had not attacked us, right? Right? Saddam Hussein had nothing to do with 9/11 or any of that, but we used that context to consider them terrorists.
Yeah.
Right? When there was a war in Afghanistan against the Russians, you remember? Those same freedom fighters that came to America, sat with Bush, shook hands, got Stinger missiles and millions of dollars, were freedom fighters. Those same peoples, when they fought the US, were terrorists. So when you say terrorism, your definition changes per situation. Fasad fil ard is a general term, right? Now what particular, like you said earlier, it goes case by case. There are hadith that mention which type of fasad has what type of hukam, what type of ruling. If you want to implement these ayat, you want to understand them, you have to study them. Just because you didn't put the time and effort to study the verse doesn't mean it's not clear. This is the difference, and I'm going to make this a very clear point for everybody. This is the difference. People think because they're ignorant of the ayah that it's not clear. The ayah is clear, but you haven't put the time to understand it. When the Quran is clear, it doesn't mean that any 5-year-old kid or any big white dude's gonna come and pick it up and he's gonna understand everything about the Quran. No, we study the Quran for years and years and years. Why? Because it is clear, but you have to learn the knowledge, and that's why we go to scholars and sources. So if you want to understand the ayah, then go seek knowledge, look at the hadith on the subject, it will be crystal clear. But if you haven't put that time in, then you will not understand the ayah, not because the ayah is not clear, but you're ignorant.
Everything you're saying right now is what I regard as the problem. It's, hey, I'm issuing a command to do violence to people. And if you want to understand what I say, you got to do a lot of research. You can't just go to Ibn Kathir and start reading because you're going to see some problems there, and you're going to say, "Whoa, this is actually worse than I thought." Okay. You can't just read the verse. You have to do all this research, right?
This would be Why
like
is
me.
that a problem?
This would.
But because you have to learn. Who told you?
No,
to
if I'm going, if all these people are here listening to me, and I say we're going to kill these people, and I don't clarify, and I say, but if you're not clear on what I mean, come, you can talk. You can read my previous writings and look into these things.
Excellent.
You would not accept that. You would not accept a president of the United States saying, "Fight those who believe in Allah." No, I'm saying so. You take right. So you're saying you share with that. Right.
So here,
we're on the same page.
Let me explain
but why do we demand this level of clarity from a political leader?
We have more clarity from Allah.
We have far less.
Let me explain that to you. Okay. When Joe Biden or President Bush or Trump or any of them would say, we're at war with terrorists, right? Now here, like I already explained to you, who is a terrorist depends on your definition. Russia will take people to be terrorists that you would consider heroes, and you would take people to be terrorists that they would consider heroes. So for us to ask, like, hey, who is a terrorist? Is our governments included or not?
Do you think you should be more clear?
Sure.
Okay, that's all I'm saying. I'm saying once you're involved in slaughtering people, be clear and don't require tons of research. Because Allah could say it, right? He could say exactly what He means in the verse.
Let me explain it to you. Allah could say, establish the prayer, Dhuhr will be 4, Asr will be 4, Maghrib will be 3, Isha will be 4, Fajr will be 2 Sunan before that, 4 Sunan before Dhuhr, 4 after Dhuhr, 4. Allah could say it. But then where is the majaz? Where is the beauty of the Quran? The Quran gives the hukam, the ruling. Now if you as David would say, can I pick up the Quran and read any verse and implement it any way I see fit? I would say no. The Quran is greater than the Constitution. How many clarifications do we write to the Constitution? It's deeper than that. It has things about the past, the future, science. It has things about rulings between husbands and wives and government. So all of that does require scholars. And that is why Allah says in the Quran, if you don't know, then what? Ask those who know. As'al ahlu dhikr. No, bro. Just because you don't know doesn't mean that I'm not going to school you today. No. Go and ask the people of knowledge. What does that mean? As'al ahlu dhikr. What does it mean? David Wood. What does it mean? Silence.
You're the Shaykh.
If I'm the Shaykh, then listen to me. Why are you telling me? All right, listen.
Because you would never accept this from anyone else, right? So we take the commands. Killing people for spreading corruption in the land.
I just told you.
Fight those who do not believe in Allah. I've been commanded to fight people until they say there's no God but Allah and Muhammad is His messenger.
That's in the Quran?
No, that's the Hadith. But you know that's authentic. I'm talking about these general claims. If the Constitution of the United States was filled with all these claims about killing people who believe that, killing people who think that, killing people who leave this religion or something like that.
Let me give you an example. Okay?
And the response was, well, you can go back through history and figure out these other situations. So you would not accept that. You would never accept that.
Let me show you how you accept it. Not just me. Okay. The Constitution says in the Second Amendment, you have the right to bear arms. What does that mean? Can David Wood walk around with a rocket launcher here?
No.
Why not? Should be. Why not? Why can David Wood not walk around with a rocket launcher when the Constitution tells you you have the David Wood's against gun rights? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just messing.
You're good.
So, do you see what I mean? You have the right to bear arms. What does that mean?
I understand.
No. Answer my question, David.
Yes, I understand. So I understand all of this.
You're not answering my question. Why can David Wood?
You're not on the same track.
I'm on the same track.
I'm saying when you call, I'm not saying you can't have a law and then clarify.
Thank you.
There are piles and piles of volumes
that
lawyers have to learn.
Thank you. And as ulama have to learn, scholars have to learn, because the Quran is deeper than the Constitution. So of course you need scholars. That's what the Quran tells you. If you don't know, David, if you're ignorant, yas'al ahlu dhikr, go and ask the people of knowledge. And that's what the Quran is explaining to you. So for you not to follow the Quran. Hello, a good question. I got you, bro. You think you got this?
I'm saying because
what does the Quran say?
If I were to go to Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, that'd be a different story, right?
I got you. Who accredited Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi to issue a fatwa?
Who accredits anyone?
Oh, you don't
So
know?
other Muslims are going too.
No. Muslim scholars have ijazat
Okay.
and asanid. I have them.
Okay.
If you want, I can show them to you, right? Where the scholars
Do
of
you have
Islam
differences of opinion
in ijazat.
in the differences in the different schools and so on?
Listen.
You have differences of opinion,
listen,
right?
Listen,
So-
hold on.
No,
See,
because there's a
trying
problem
to jump the subject. Let me just explain who can give fatwa first.
Okay.
Right? Because you're trying to jump right now. Let me explain.
No,
this to
you're not on the right problem.
Okay. So let me just clarify. I'll let you speak. You let me speak. When we talk about the Constitution, the right to bear arms, there are people that I know personally, including some relatives here, that believe you should be able to own any kind of weapon. And you should be able to walk around because this is a well-functioning militia should have any. If the government has certain weapons like rocket launchers, David Wood should be able to have it. And if the government can have military walking around with it, David Wood should be able to. There are people who believe that, right? David Wood disagreed with that right now on tape, right? So obviously the second commandment is not that clear. There's disagreement. So what happens now? You have laws, you have courts, you have the Supreme Court, you have different law bodies that look at the Constitution, look at the context of what the forefathers meant, and then they give their legal opinions. You cannot say the Constitution is useless because what does bear arms mean? No, just because you don't know the context doesn't mean it's useless. So the Quran is that deep that you,
Which
the
religion never
Quran
killed a bunch
itself
of people?
tells you. I'm sorry,
Which one never
I'm
killed a bunch of people?
speaking right now.
I think they
Do you mind?
both did. I think they both did.
I don't know what you just said, but whatever. So, when the Quran gives you such deep knowledge that it's not for kids to just pick up and read with an ABC.
It doesn't. It's outside the Quran.
Listen,
go
bro,
elsewhere.
listen. When the Quran gives you that deep knowledge, then it tells you with it that look, if you're ignorant, if you don't know, go and ask Ahlul Dhikr. What type of scholars you ask, right? Now I'm answering that. The Quran tells you, Ahlul Dhikr. What's dhikr?
I just told you I haven't studied Islam since last year.
So come and study then.
Okay.
Why don't you
I'm
learn
try- I'm
before
try-
you
I'm try-
make
I'm trying
objections?
now, but I'm saying it's a
no,
problem.
instead of objecting and coming and argue, study. Learn. Ahlul Dhikr are the scholars that know the Quran and Hadith because that's called dhikr, right? Of remembrance. So those scholars that give you evidences. Now when you want to give your opinion about a verse, if you want to make tafsir of that verse, it's not as easy as just picking up Ibn Kathir. This is like saying, I'm going to pick up some medical book and do operations on you. Nobody would allow that. You're like, why is science so complicated? Because it's deep. Right? So as that, the Quran is deeper than that. So you go to the scholars who have been given ijazat and asanid. If you don't know what that is, I'm going to tell you. In ijazah is when you study with me, and Allah make you Muslim and you can become my student, and you can study with me. And then I teach you, and then I say, you know what, now David Wood, now that all that garbage is taken out and you're clear and you've actually learned and you know what these terms mean and you know the verses mean, I'm going to write you an accreditation. And I'm going to give you a sanad, a chain of narrators, all the way back to either the author of the book or to the Prophet ﷺ, or in the case of the Quran to Allah. Now I accredit you. Abu Bakr Baghdadi, Osama bin Laden, these people are political figures. You should know better than to think that they can give fatwa. It should be people of knowledge, like a Shaykh ibn Uthman and those scholars that studied knowledge, that have those ijazat, that then go and give fatwa. So when you don't understand a verse, if it's not clear to you, it's not because the ayah is not clear, it's because you're ignorant. You go to the people of knowledge who can give you evidences, get the answer, and they will tell you, dear brother David, this ayah is not about any fasad. Because of this hadith, this ayah is about this type of fasad. And then it would be clear for you.
Just a quick question. So if it's clear, that means people shouldn't be disagreeing on it, right? Muslims or no?
No,
Okay.
let me explain
Okay,
it.
go ahead.
And you brought up disagreements. I gotta get going in a few minutes. So,
No,
now
we got to zoom through. I got to get through one track.
I mean,
Can we
Can I answer
It's
this
okay.
question?
No, go ahead. Sorry.
No,
sorry.
you brought up the same question, so let me explain it.
It's okay. Sorry. Good.
You
Take
brought
him.
up the same question. Relax. So when
Actually-
you have disagreements, it doesn't mean that something isn't explicit. Sometimes no Muslim disagrees on the basis of Islam. There is one Allah, there is one Prophet, 5 prayers. We all agree on that, right? But then what you have, like for example, the Shia, where there are some political issues that cause them to go off track, and there are Mu'tazila and there are Jahmiya and those guys that had disagreements in Aqidah. But at the base, Muslim Aqidah, the Muslims are united. We believe in what Allah has revealed, the Prophet ﷺ. Now when it comes down to rulings, particular rulings, sometimes there's disagreement because scholars try their best to understand the source. But if you want to know the correct opinion, and you look at the evidences, it always becomes explicitly clear.
So there's always one that's
Correct
going to be
opinion.
the correct interpretation
Yes.
of a verse, always?
Always.
And all Muslims agree on this?
that there is one correct
interpretation
yes.
of every
But
verse?
somebody could be mistaken in it.
But then so what's the difference then between something being clear? How do you determine if something's clear?
Let me explain this.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
Well, your name is John?
John, yeah.
John. If I tell you we're at Balboa Park, I'm pretty explicit with this, right?
Yeah.
Am I clear or not, right? Now,
It depends on what you mean by clear. That's what I mean. I don't know how you're defining clear. If you say you're
If
at
I
Balboa
tell
Park,
you we're at Balboa Park, is that
correct.
clear or not?
It's clear to me when you say the words, but that's
Okay.
not clear what the words mean. Because you could be saying, no, it's not funny. Because you could be saying that there could be multiple parks. You could be saying whatever. You could be saying all kinds of different things. So what I'm trying to understand is what your definition of clear is.
Excellent. So this is the problem, is that you have a perception of clarity that may not be what's, I don't know, regularly accepted. If I tell
I'm
you,
just asking your perception of clarity. Yeah.
I gave you. If I tell you we're at Balboa Park, I'm pretty clear, right? Now, these people standing here, somebody could be like, I think this is not Balboa Park, this is North Park, right? They could have that opinion, but we could go back and check a map and see which park we're at and come to the right conclusion. Just because one person didn't understand something doesn't mean that I wasn't explicitly clear.
So
Are you
clear.
now?
Okay. So hon. Yeah. No. So clear then. But so that's what. So clear. You're saying is independent of how other people understand it. Correct.
Sure.
So something's
You could be
clear only. So if
and
I
somebody
say.
misunderstands
So
it.
if I say blah 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 blah, and I say, hey, that's
definitely not
clear.
clear.
Why is that not clear though?
Because I have no idea what you said.
Yeah. So, but if I don't understand what you're saying and I have different interpretations, then it's still not clear.
No, it is, because when you said blah 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 blah,
Yeah.
nobody understood that. Did anybody? Get any meaning
But
from
if
that?
it's subjective, then I would only have to understand it for
Again,
it to be clear.
no,
So that's why I
that-
say,
that-
is it
that
clear?
doesn't make-
Okay, let me put it this way. Is it sorry? And I'm just trying to rush quick because I know you got to get out of here. Is it clear when somebody is talking, the person who gives the word, is the clarity on their behalf or is it on the listener's behalf?
It is clear to the person who said it, and the people who want to get to the truth can understand it. But if somebody is
Okay.
mistaken, like when you said blah 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 blah,
Yeah.
nobody here, even if we want to understand you, took any meaning from that. But when I said we're at Balboa Park, all of you that want to know can find it. Even if somebody is misunderstanding what I'm saying, it doesn't mean the message isn't clear.
Then there should be no
Okay.
difference in
Do you
opinion.
wanna-
So yeah, but that's okay.
Yeah,
But
I know
then
you
my
gotta
point
go-
with
I know
that
you
is there
gotta
shouldn't be
go through,
difference in
I think I
opinion.
get to the last point, so at least we kind of went
Go for
through
it.
issues on one track. So let me just sort of sum up my view on if I were reading this, if I were a Muslim and I was reading this.
Okay. With a teacher.
And, no, if I were just reading this,
Okay, there's a
right?
problem right there. You should. If
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
a
but if
Muslim,
I were reading this,
you
that-
should
that-
have a teacher, right?
that's fine. But I mean, if
Okay.
this is Allah's eternal speech and I read it, and it sounds,
Again,
it
this
sounds
is
clear.
no. Wait.
Can I just get-
Let me
explain my
just
point?
make
Right.
this clear before you make
Okay.
your point, because this is going in a loop because you're not understanding what I'm saying.
I'm
When you-
understanding. I'm disagreeing.
So let me explain my point, and then you can disagree all day and all night. When you say Allah's eternal speech is clear, nobody says that means that you are just going to pick up the Quran and make your own ideas and implement them. It means that Allah made clear His ahkam, and He sent the Prophet ﷺ to show us how to implement them, and He chose from the people of knowledge, and then He instructed you that when something isn't clear to you, it's not because the ayah is not clear, it's because you're ignorant. Go and ask Ahlul Dhikr, the people of knowledge, so then it can become clear. So as a Muslim, you should then ask somebody who has studied the Sharia, who is qualified by scholars to be giving fatawa and tafsir and hadith. Say, hey, is this hadith sahih? Is this hukm implemented like this or not? Just because you didn't understand it without going to the people of knowledge doesn't mean it's not clear.
All right.
Go ahead.
Now, so if I were reading this, Surah 5:32, Surah 5:33, and I read penalty for those who make war or spread corruption in the land
Excellent.
is this, and it's all
Yes.
these penalties,
Yes.
and this is said to rule out terrorism. I would be reading that, and if you look at what terrorists say, they usually don't think they're killing innocent people. You look at the Al Qaeda reader, and so
Sure.
on. Their reasoning was, look at what places like the United States are doing. Look at what Israel is doing. Look at what these various people are doing.
Sure.
And so they're not innocent, right? They're not innocent.
Sure.
Their militaries, their governments are committing crimes. As far as killing ordinary citizens, ordinary Israelis, ordinary Americans, and so on, It's these are the people who vote these people into power. These are the people who pay taxes to these governments to do these things, and therefore they're not innocent. I don't see anything in here that would contradict that. So that's one thing. Now I understand
I'm letting you finish.
you're saying I would go to a scholar, and I would ask the scholar for clarification. That's a good segue into this ties together, and then you can respond. On the last one. No, it's because this is what we were just talking about. So misconception number 11 is Islam forces people to become Muslim, right? And the verse that is said to refute that is Surah 2, verse 256. Let there be no compulsion in religion. Truth has been made clear from error. So this tract is saying that shows that you can't force people to become Muslim.
Okay.
Okay. So suppose I read that and I'm confused. I'm confused because this verse says, you kill these people. This says fight those people, fight those who do not believe in Allah.
That's not about forcing people to become Muslim.
Well,
why are you confused?
No. Look,
all right, go ahead.
When Muhammad says, "I've been commanded to fight people until they say there's no God but Allah and Muhammad is His messenger," that sounds like I'm going to fight you until you believe what I'm telling you to believe.
Sounds like that.
That's not. If you want to say that's not forcing, that's me saying I'm going to stab you until you agree with me, but you're free to believe whatever you want, right?
Because you don't understand the hadith.
I haven't gotten to the point. So, the point is, suppose I read something like that. Hey, this sounds like I'm supposed to go out and fight people until they agree with me. This verse says no compulsion in religion.
Good.
You're saying go to a scholar.
That's what the Quran is telling you.
Yeah, I'm supposed to go to a scholar.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So I go to a scholar. So
this is not a scholar. You know that, right?
Ibn Kathir.
This is a book. So let me explain to you.
Yes.
No. Look, I listened to you. Now, can you let me?
He's quoting scholars.
Let me explain this to you, Dave.
Let me just finish one.
Go ahead. Let you finish.
So it's commentary on Surah 2, verse 256. Okay. So suppose I want to know what past scholars have said, so I know who I should listen to, right? So he talks about the historical background in Surah 256. No compulsion in religion, right? And so we go down, and it says at the conclusion of all that.
You're skipping through the whole explanation, though, right?
Yeah, he gives the explanation, right?
Okay.
So he gives the historical background, but then he says, but this verse is abrogated by the verse of fighting. You shall be called to fight against the people, given to great warfare. Then you shall fight them, or they shall surrender. Allah also says, O Prophet, strive hard against the disbelievers and the hypocrites, and be harsh against them. And he says, O you who believe, fight those of the disbelievers who are close to you, and let them find harshness in you, and know that Allah is with those who are the pious. Therefore, all people of the world should be called to Islam. If any one of them refuses to do so, or refuses to pay the jizya, they should be fought till they are killed. Right? So that's what I see when I look at Ibn Kathir. Okay. And then I just have one more. I just want to.
You're making like 10 points.
I'm trying to get the whole point.
This is all one. This is all not going to work when you don't listen. Bro.
This is all one point. I'm making the exact same point. So suppose I don't like Ibn Kathir.
Yeah.
And I want to go.
It's not about who you like. This is where you're misunderstanding.
I get it. So I ask Muslims, hey, who are your scholars? You said, hey, you should read Tabari, you should read this. Yeah. So I go to Qurtubi. Okay. And Qurtubi, right after quoting this verse, says, scholars disagree and hold various positions regarding the legal status and meaning of this ayah.
Okay, there you go.
It is said that it is abrogated because the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, forced the Arabs to adopt the deen of Islam and fought them and was only pleased with Islam for them. Sulaiman ibn Musa took this view, saying it is abrogated by, O Prophet, do jihad against the unbelievers and the hypocrites. That is related from Ibn Masud and many commentators. And then it goes on, we don't need to read much more, but then the next interpretation he gives, it is not abrogated and was sent down about the people of the book in particular, and means that they are not forced to adopt Islam when they pay jizya. Those who are forced are the idolaters, which you said isn't the case earlier. So here's.
Let me explain it.
I'm done. I'm done. I just want to summarize. Yeah, I may disagree with what you're about to say, but I'm saying. So we've got these verses that are about fighting and killing.
Sure.
And we've got verses that are like no compulsion in religion, or to you be your religion, to me be my religion, right?
Excellent.
We've got verses like that. And if I'm confused, I'm supposed to go to a scholar.
Yes.
But these show that scholars have disagreed over the centuries. They have, right?
so let me-
They have. So some are saying, hey, the actual conclusion, once you read the entire case, the conclusion, the takeaway message is you're supposed to fight people until they believe in Allah. And the other things that said something else, no compulsion in religion, those have been abrogated. And so the point is, you're handing out a material which someone would read and they would say,
I'm just letting you finish now.
yeah, you would say, oh, Islam forces people to become Muslim. That's a misconception because the Quran says, let there be no compulsion in religion. And what I'm saying is, scholars down through history have held interpretations that certainly don't line up with that interpretation. So you're acting like, hey, if you're a scholar, you're going to come to the conclusion that
done?
you're coming with. No. You're saying you're giving a representation of scholars. And if you're a scholar, you're going to come to the same conclusions, and you're going to say this is actually peaceful. This is actually what this verse means. And when we look, we see they come to wildly different conclusions. And some of the conclusions that they're drawing are things like, therefore, all people of the world should be invited to Islam. If they don't come, they should be fought till they are killed if they don't pay the jizya. The point here is, this business of when Allah is not clear in His Quran about commands to kill and slaughter people, subjugate people, and so on, when He's not clear, yes, if you're not clear, that allows someone to step in and say, of course, this is actually peaceful and you need to interpret it peacefully. But it's also wide open for someone to say, actually, this is abrogated and we're commanded to do this. The point is, it looks like a giant mess. And the real issue that I'm concerned with here is that you're handing this out and acting like this is a straightforward condemnation of forcing people to become Muslim. This is the verse that refutes it. This is the verse that refutes that. And I open up your commentaries, and the first thing I see is things that contradict what you're saying. And you're saying go to a scholar.
Are you done? I'm listening to you. Are you done?
Go ahead.
Are you done?
It depends on what you say.
No,
As long as you
no.
agree with me, then I'm done.
Well, then you're not done, because I'm not going to agree with you. But are you done saying what you had to say so you can listen now?
I made my point.
Okay, thank you. That means you're done with what you're saying and you're going to listen now, right?
I'm going to listen. You're listening.
Okay, excellent. First thing is, when I told you that you need to go to a scholar, you misunderstood that to go to pick up Tafsir ibn Kathir. He is somebody who passed away hundreds and hundreds of years ago. You are just picking up an English translation of a summary and thinking you understand what you really don't. Because Ibn Kathir gives you different opinions, like Qurtubi that you quoted yourself, gives you opinions to understand that there were differences of opinions about whether this was nasikh or mansukh. When I say you need to go to a scholar, I mean somebody who's alive. Okay? Somebody you can go to and say, hey, I want to understand this ayah, because these are just few books. You have Tabari, you have Ibn Kathir, you have the Makhshari, you have Qurtubi, you have all these classic tafasir, you have Suyuti. We look at those, then we look at evidences. Okay? When the Prophet ﷺ took over Mecca, you know Fath al-Mecca, right? You know Fath al-Mecca? No? The victory when Mecca was killed, right? Without fighting, right? Did he go and say everybody who's a polytheist, forget about Ahlul Kitab, will be put to death? No, he didn't. He did not. So
yet.
in Fath al-Mecca, did he do that or not?
No, not there.
Okay.
No, it was certain people. Certain people.
Those that committed
even-
war crimes.
said
Yeah.
even-
Those that committed war crimes. Then you can listen to my lecture and I go through each one that was killed and why he was killed and what war
I
crimes
mean, there
they
were
committed.
singing girls who made fun of him. That was a war crime? They
Are
made
you
fun of him?
talking about Fath al-Mecca or are you talking about other incidents?
I'm saying when he took Mecca, he said there are certain people, even if
So
they're clinging to the curtains of the Kaaba, you got to kill them. Some of those were just singing girls, slave girls who were singing.
Those were people, and I've gone through each one of them. That wasn't just the fact that we're singing, it's the crimes they had committed, mutilation of bodies, including by women, of prisoners of war, just because you're ignorant.
girls did it?
Some of the girls did do it, yes.
The girls who were condemned.
Some of them.
Why does it just say who wrote satirical songs about it?
Because you don't know the depth of the knowledge.
It
Because
would kind of seem important
Right.
to listen.
It
That's
would,
like me.
it would,
That's like
it
me
would,
saying
right.
Charles
So-
Manson needs to go to jail because he jaywalked. Right?
Right. But that's because you don't know who Charles Manson was and what he did. So if you want to know why he went to jail, read his court papers. So if you want to know about the hadith about who did what and why, there are hadith on it. Just because you didn't read them doesn't mean they don't exist. Okay? So what you should do is go to a person of knowledge and say, hey, why was this person put to death and why was this person not? Why was Abu Sufyan and Hinda and those not? Why were others who stayed polytheists in Mecca were not put to death, right? So when you look at those contexts and how the Prophet ﷺ did it, then we look at the different scholarly opinions, we weigh them with evidences, and we come to the right conclusion. We cannot put that kind of a debate in a flyer, neither do you, right? Let me give you an example. This is from the Bible, right? You have here a verse in Exodus 21, 20, 21. Exodus 21, 20, 21. And if a man beats his male or female servant with a rod so that he dies under his hand, he shall surely be punished. Notwithstanding, if he remains alive a day or two, he shall not be punished, for he is his property. Now, if I don't look at context, if I don't ask David Wood or anybody, and I just take this and say the Bible is clear, I'm going to get a slave, I'm going to beat him to death, and if he stays alive, I can't be arrested. And now you are going to come and say, no, that's not the context, this is the old, this is this. But then you're contradicting your own point. You're telling me to go get context for ayat from the Bible when you won't do the same for the Quran. This is your double standard. This is your problem. This is where you are not being fair in this conversation, because you know this Bible is filled with verses about killing homosexuals, about things that people have used to carry out hate crimes, to carry out genocides, and you know that's true. And you will say, oh, we condemn that, because what they should have done is understood the context of those verses from the Bible. And when we say the same thing about the Quran, then you don't accept it. Thank you for your time. No, you said you were done.
No, I said
done.
if I agreed with
Thank
you.
you.
Just
my time to go.
Hey, let me, while you're wrapping up,
Have a good day.
Hey, Shaykh.
Come back another
Do
day.
you want me to just say it to the camera here?
If you want to, it's up to you. I gave you time to finish. I finished.
How about we
My
do,
time
how about
is
we
to
do
go.
quick short one as we're
You
walking?
come back.
As we're walking.
You come back. And no, I'm not going to do this short back and forth. Come back.
No.
Sit and discuss.
I just mean.
Thank you.
Final thought. No.
All right.
I know that. Like,
So the point that he wouldn't listen to was there is no Christian on the planet who would say, if you read something in the Bible and you're concerned about interpreting it correctly, there is no Christian on the planet who would say, don't read what scholars have
true.
said. Yeah. Show me one Christian on the planet who would say, okay, good.
No. Come back another day. You know the
Oh, okay.
timings
Well, I'll
and
continue.
speak.
I'll continue talking.
You can talk all
listen to me if you want. If you want to jump in, you can jump
your
in.
audience knows that you've been
You're breaking
informed,
down so
right?
you can hear what I'm saying. So, I have never heard of a Christian who would say, if you want to understand this verse, don't read about it. Don't go to the classical Bible scholars. Don't look at what Bible scholars have said. You can only go to a person who has this kind of credentials and so on. Never heard anyone say that. So to consider that a parallel, if you're bothered by that verse, the first thing you would do is look up commentary. You get a study Bible, you get a commentary by like Paul Copan or something like that on things that are regarded as moral problems in the Bible and so on. No one would say you have to spend years researching at the feet of a scholar to understand what's being said there, or to understand it. I can't think of anything in the Bible. Obviously, if you're getting into theology, it helps to do a ton of research and to study. But if it's straightforward commands, the commands that are directed towards us are pretty clear. Love your neighbors yourself. Love your enemies, honor all people. These are pretty straightforward. You get something confusing, you open up a book. The problem, and the only reason I can even imagine for saying don't go to the books, don't go to Ibn Kathir, don't go to Qurtubi, don't go to the earlier scholars that they're quoting. The only reason I can say for saying that is that those scholars are just not going to line up with what Muslims are saying today. Right? If you go through Qurtubi and you read, there's no compulsion in religion, there's no one on that list who thinks it means what Muslims today say that it means. And so you obviously don't want to go there. You want to go to, a modern scholar, preferably in America or something like that, who's going to tell you, no, it means exactly what it says. And so this is really the disagreement. How clear do we need to be on commands to kill and slaughter? If the Quran is so horribly unclear that you have all these commands that convince some of their all-time greatest scholars that this is a command to violently subjugate the entire world, and it's not,
It seems like Allah would have to be the absolute worst communicator in history. That's all I can conclude. I just want to say I appreciate that the Shaykh puts himself out there like that. Again, I haven't been studying Islam in a while. That's why I'm trying to get back into it. But my goodness, this is not a solution. The miracle of reinterpretation is just not a solution to the problems there. And if you have all of these tracts that you're handing out, these tracts that you're distributing, and the first thing that happens as soon as you look any of them up in any commentary is it gives the exact opposite interpretation that's being put forward, I'd say you got a problem.